Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 104, Cosmo Natalia with RW Nunley. How you doing, sir? Thank you for coming on, and thank you, as always, our Jeff for sending all the amazing people out to us to not just, bring amazing comics to our life, but to just, promote the people just like me and my co-hosts who are trying to do this on the side while we're doing the real job. So, RW, before we get into your
Yeah.
comic, just tell a little bit people about, growing up as a kid. Were you big into comics and art growing up, or was it something that you really did when you became a teenager?
When I was a kid, my dad, he's an artist also,
Hmm.
another family member that I had, my uncle Brad, he kind of helped run the local convention scene around Wichita. So my dad would go with him and sell art at the art auctions at the local conventions, and I kind of, tagged along with a lot of that. So I got an early start into this kind of
Hmm.
stuff.
Awesome. And when did you actually like really sit down to hone your skills as an artist? Like was it more like, okay, this is definitely what I want to do as a kid, or it's like, okay, now as a teenager, I want to focus more on possibly doing this when I become an adult? Because sometimes people really don't take it seriously until like into their later years.
Yeah, I mean, I had this early love for comic book art and wanting to do it, and it was just like almost immediately, like the first one or two comics that I had, I was already trying to emulate, like my favorite artist style, and I was like copying their drawings just line for
Hmm.
line, and but it really wasn't until much later that I started trying to do it, like seriously, and started to consider it like as a profession.
Gotcha. And with you, with your comics and everything, are you just the writer or are you the artist as well?
I'm the artist and the co-creator for this comic, and my friend Dean Page, who's a guy that I was helping him with one of his own Kickstarter projects.
Hmm.
Like prior to working on this, he is actually the writer for it.
Okay. And with you doing the comic and everything, what do you feel is your strong point when it comes to drawing? Like, are you you mostly like to do pencils, inks, colors? I mean, because people that's the beautiful thing about comics. You don't have to be a good penciler, but you could be an amazing
Mhm.
colorist.
Yeah, like early on when I got into comics, I didn't really have the confidence to just start penciling. So I actually
Hmm.
started out inking. But now later in life, all I really want to do is I want to do the penciling,
Yeah.
which is
Hmm.
and now in this digital age, the penciling and inking jobs have kind of merged into one, and it's almost all done digitally now. So that's perfect for me because now I'm kind of just doing both in one step.
Oh yeah, most definitely same here. And when it came to you said that you were doing a co-writing with the another person in this book.
Hmm.
Is this your first book or do you have others?
This is my first independent book
Okay,
that I did just for myself. I've worked on a number of other books,
gotcha.
but usually in a like a work for hire or a collaborative you know kind of setup.
And with that, when you started to do comics, besides like being a fan of them, did you feel at first it was difficult for you? Because I know some people are like, "Oh, I want to do comics," but then they realize, "Oh, I wrote so much, and how am I going to fit it in this little small box?"
Hmm. I mean, just starting strictly from when I started out, I was just on the art side, and
Hmm.
I mean that was very difficult because I didn't really understand how to read a comic script,
Yeah.
and that's it's something I suppose everybody goes through when you go from just drawing at home to like trying it on professionally. You kind of have to go through those growing pains a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean, people try to do it like, this way, or they'll try to do it the Marvel way. It's like, oh, I'll just draw out this scene and just add text. But even that, I think that you really have to have an idea with like at least a brainstorm of what you want the story to be. So you're not just thrown around everywhere and it's not
yeah,
connecting.
yeah. yeah, having a plan definitely helps. I don't think you can just sit and draw pages and then add the story later.
Right. So with Cosmo Natalia, tell a little bit people, I had the link in the description, but tell a little bit people about, what it is and what really made you to, you know, this book is like your passion project and you wanted to do it for a while.
Okay. Yeah. So while I was working with Dean on his Return of Jake Sunrise project,
Hmm.
it was I'd never been involved with like crowdfunding or Kickstarter before that. So I started out just helping him with a sculpt as an add-on for his campaign, and
Gotcha.
then I got into helping him with like some logo design and some layout help and this, that, and the other. And I started I kind of inserted myself into his campaign because I wanted to see what it was like. And
Hmm.
like while we were doing that, I started this just for fun drawing at home of it was a girl fighting a dinosaur, right? And it
Yeah.
wound up like the girl turned into an astronaut and the dinosaurs turned into alien dinosaurs. And in
Hmm.
the process of this one drawing, I kind of dreamed up the idea for this book. And since I was talking to Dean at the time, we started throwing it around, and this whole story came together just kind of very quickly and very organically. And I did originally try to write the thing myself, but I found out pretty quickly that I needed some help to try to turn it into like a cohesive narrative that was
Yeah.
that somebody
Yeah.
else
This
would be
page
able to
here
read and
is really
understand.
awesome. I love, I love this scene here because even without the dialogue, as I always say, that it's great when you could take a panel and just have the pictures and be able to tell what the story what's going on in the story before you even add the words.
Yeah, that's one of the more fun pages,
Mhm.
for drawing. It's just a great time. It's like just there are pipes and gadgets everywhere.
Yeah. And with this story, did you get any like inspirations for stuff? Because I mean, especially in the 90s and 80s, you had like real big, you know, characters like with anime, with video games like PlayStation with Tomb Raider, you had Tank Girl, and then you had everyone who grew up in the 80s, you had Metro, and you found out at the end it was a woman in that suit
Right.
after
Yeah.
the whole time.
Uh, yeah, it blew all of our minds, right? Because
Hmm.
you didn't have a lot of female heroes back then,
Right?
but
Yeah. Unless you
um,
were like like horror movies, that's different.
mhm.
You always had the
Oh
woman
yeah,
that
the
yeah.
Scream Queens. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, this book draws its inspiration from a lot of different places, and
Hmm.
like one of the big ones was something that I did early on in my career. I met a guy named Roger Hill who was writing a book about Wallace Wood, who is an old school like EC comics. He did like weird science and a lot of horror books way
Yeah,
back when.
I got some of those comics, of course, being a
Yeah,
sci-fi horror show, so yeah.
but while Roger was working on his book, he had all of this old artwork, and he was
Mhm.
having me digitally restore it and getting it ready for his book. And that was kind of my introduction to that whole vein of comics that were before my time. And
Yeah.
but that old art was just amazing, and I loved the kind of campy sci-fi feel.
Oh, yeah, especially this page right here with the I guess, velociraptors with feathers,
Yeah,
really great scene.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, really pops out at me, especially with the different colors and, you're in the description, it's like Planet X, so it's just, again, like you were saying with the sci-fi and the horror, most of the time back in the day, a lot of those sci-fi shows or, comics were very colorful and
Hmm.
very vibrant because it was supposed to be, something different that we'd never seen, and, a lot of times you threw in the dinosaurs because that was a typical thing back then. So yeah,
Hmm.
really great stuff.
Thanks. Okay.
And this is one of three from what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, it's the first of a three-part series, and I was a little bit nervous trying to do like all three books and then throw them all out there at one time.
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to test the waters with just the first issue, and
Gotcha.
see what kind of interest might be out there. But yeah, the campaign's doing well, so we'll
Awesome.
be happy to just jump right into the next one. As soon as we get fulfillment done on this campaign.
Yeah. And when you guys were doing this, like, how did you go about finding like all the creators to help out with this? Did you go to like Reddit? Did you go to like some website? Because sometimes people find different artists or people looking for work on different forums.
Yeah, I'm not on Reddit a whole lot. There's a, and not necessarily in comic, creator
Hmm.
subreddits, but and a lot of other ones. Reddit can be a pretty toxic place, so
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of avoid it.
most
But
definitely.
but there's a lot of Facebook groups where like sharing art and talking to other younger artists, and
Yeah,
like
Discord's a big thing now too for a lot of people.
mhm. But it was for me it was the Facebook groups,
Hmm.
and I just met other creators through there, and there's such an open and welcoming kind of community
Yeah.
that it's really easy to meet and talk to people and get advice and get help getting started with this for somebody who's never done a crowdfunding campaign before.
Hmm. Yeah, most definitely. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, where do I go? It's like, what tiers do I do?
Hmm.
How much of the book do I have to have done before I promote this? And trying to explain to people just because you pledge doesn't mean the money's taken out of your wallet yet. So don't be discouraged when you're like, whoa,
Right.
why is this money out of here for some reason? So yeah, it's a lot to handle and explain to people, and you don't want to overdo yourself because I know some people, it's like you have so many like tiers and pledges where you're, you know, over your head, and then you get mixed up. It's like, oh, okay, this person gets the book, this person gets a digital copy, they get like a
Yeah.
one of a kind drawing. Like sometimes it's best to keep it simple, especially if you're doing it
Right.
all by yourself.
I mean, you feel like you need to have a lot to offer, to encourage people to spend their hard-earned money in here.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah,
but if you offer too much, you run the risk of being like too successful, and now you have all these demands, and how are you ever going to meet them? And I don't think that I'm going to be in that position, and I hope not. Luckily, this book was almost entirely complete when we launched, so
good, good. Yeah, I like it when people do that because it's one of those things when you have something like halfway, it's like, okay, that's great and everything, but sometimes things happen and you're not able
right.
to get it done because it's life and we all have our other jobs. So, you try not to have that happen because then your fan base is going to be discouraged. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
is it going to happen again? So, most
it is.
definitely.
And and I'm a career artist. That that's what I
Hmm.
do at my day job, and and I've been doing that for 25 years. So yeah, like for me, it's like that's the very worst thing that you can do is
Yeah. Hmm.
is not meet your expectations. So I mean, you take on a little bit more risk when you've got a team. There's more people involved, but
Yeah.
it's so difficult. You couldn't possibly do it all on your own.
Hmm.
But everybody else that's been involved, like Hafid is he's like super professional and very timely with his flats, and Kimberly's been really great to work with, and like really pretty fast too.
Yeah. And
So
are you going to be working with the same team when it comes to the other books?
I really hope to keep the same group together.
Hmm.
If I mean, I really love Kimberly's color palette that she uses,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I hope that
Definitely love that.
you know, she's just her color choices are just they're just amazing, and if for some reason she does, wind up like busy with other projects or can't commit to this one again, I do have like another guy that I've got in mind who, he's got a very similar style. So like I
Hmm.
hope I don't have to go to Plan B, but if I do, he's a great colorist also.
Well, as you know, it's one of those things that like a lot of people that I've had on the show have had the same artist, and it's really great to have the same one because they're like, okay, we did the first book together and now we have like two more, five more. Now I could really like write the next books and add more detail because I know what those person's like strong points are, where I
Right,
could bring it out of them. It's like, okay, I like the page here is like, okay, with this big panel with all these colors, I know next time I could write this scene and not be afraid of you not able to not give it because not
right.
because you can't, just because your skills aren't there yet.
Yeah, and these next two issues, they're going to take place like on the same planet with the same
Hmm.
scenes and backgrounds. So I think it'd be, especially with the idea of like putting the 3 books together later into like a graphic novel,
Yeah.
format, like having that same color is really critical for that.
Yeah. So with how you were saying with the comic and everything, you got different inspirations, and I'm mad that I don't remember the movie because it's a classic sci-fi movie or little animation, like how you were having your video and you had a spaceship crashing into a face that was a sun, but
Yeah,
in
yeah,
pop culture we know it was a moon,
right.
so
Yeah, it was from the old Trip to the Moon movie from
yeah,
like
yeah. I
1905 or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot the
And
name of it, but I'm like, that's a classic scene. Like people who grew up on watching sci-fi or anybody that likes
yeah,
any pop culture, that's iconic there. I'm like, oh, that's a nice little nudge
yeah.
without getting copyright.
So I mean, the reason for the sun
Hmm.
is that's actually the logo for Dean's project, Jake Sunrise.
Oh, okay.
And so like it's kind of an Easter egg. You can see it in the image on the screen. He's wearing that same sun kind of up around his
Oh,
neck, the main bad guy. And
gotcha.
it was just kind of a fun thing to tie these 2 projects together with. And I'm making the story about a rocket ship, and he's got this one with this big sun on the logo. So it seemed like that's what we're going to do. We're going to crash a rocket into that sucker and put it in
Hmm.
the video.
Gotcha. That's cool.
And the whole book is full of Easter eggs, like similar Easter eggs like that from all of the crazy source material that it's drawn from.
Yeah. I like how like some of the variant covers, like
Mhm.
variant cover E, like it has that like, old school, like what does this take place in? Like the 60s? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, just like the little like what's the word I'm looking for? Like the calendar girls, like the old school calendar girls,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you would
I'm a big
that you
fan
would
of the old like Vargas and Olivia kind of art too.
yeah. And
So
that's the type of art you would see on like, planes going to war too. So,
right,
back in the
right.
day. So yeah. And again, it's just a sci-fi twist on it, but like it's always great when you see a person from Earth going to a strange planet and they become the hero. Of course, mostly during the 80s, you had men, but
Mhm.
later on, we started seeing more women. Like, I don't know why, but, you know, again, I think of Metro, but then I think of like ones with Minute, like Flash Gordon, like, old school stuff. Like, you would just have like this beautiful person with blonde hair or
Yeah,
anything, and they would just go and beat the shit out of these people who probably are more powerful and civil and
right. Yeah, yeah.
more technology than Earth.
Barbarella sort of
Right?
stuff.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So with the characters and everything, like,
Mhm.
is she just the main hero, or there's more people there to like help out on the planet? Because
Well,
I see different
yes.
species on this.
So yeah, the alien guy with the kind of harem and girls. That's our big
Mhm.
bet for the story.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
he's this kind of like middling would-be warlord sort of
Yeah.
character who's been stranded on Planet X forever. And his ultimate goal, of course, is to conquer Earth, which he views as, but like this was mine to begin with, so I'm just taking it back.
Mhm.
And but then you got our cosmonaut is she's a Cold War era Soviet cosmonaut,
Yeah.
and but she was actually born in Ukraine, and when she arrives at Planet X, she actually arrives there in 2024, and has been in kind of cold storage this whole time.
Oh, okay.
And she actually arrives there at the same time as a much newer American spacecraft that only took 9 months to get there. So it's crewed by like modern people,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah.
so she's going to wind up meeting this this Cold War era Soviet cosmonaut is going to meet like a modern day female American astronaut.
That's cool. I like that.
And yeah, so they're going to be like immediately at odds with each other.
Oh yeah, most
You know,
definitely. And they're probably gonna have different tactics and be like, Mother
mhm.
Russia's better and everything.
Right, right. Yeah, and our American astronaut, she's kind of a Texas girl, so she's all America,
America. Yeah.
right? And but of course, our cosmonaut though, like she has no idea what's transpired on Earth in
Oh yeah.
the 60 years that she's been gone. So,
Hmm.
discovering all that's going to be kind of a fun story in and of itself.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I definitely like how you have like the mini bust here. How did you go about doing that? Did you use a 3D printer or did you go with the company to do that?
So I do like at my day job, I do like commercial designing
Mhm.
badges and emblems,
Okay.
for automotive and marine. And so like 3D sculpting and 3D modeling is, I mean, it's like literally what I do day in and day out. So I sculpted this in a 3D modeling program like here at home. And my son is an avid 3D printer. We have multiple 3D printers here at the house that like he makes D&D miniatures and he runs them in like an industrial production capacity here at the house. So we're actually doing that like completely in house.
Yeah, see, I'm liking how more and more people, when their Kickstarters, are going above like, oh, you'll get a one of a kind art print by me and signed by me. Like, that's great and everything, but if you could offer more, that's even better because you're doing this. And then, we've had a friend on the show. She's been on several times, and I don't know where she gets them, but she has custom made pop vinyls of her comic characters.
Oh wow,
So it's like, I'm liking more and more that people are going
yeah.
outside the box, but you
If
know,
I if I had
like you
known,
said, you want to make it like where you want these people to buy this stuff. People are going to want these mini busts, because it's
yeah,
one of a kind.
yeah, and I mean, I hope they do because that is actually because we don't have to go through a company or anything. That's actually like a tremendous fundraising item for us.
Hmm.
It's we make it all in house, and we actually do make money on it. And I think a lot of the other campaigns where they've hired out a company to get those
Yeah.
minis, they're having to sell them for like $20-$25, and they're only making like $1, on
Oh
that.
yeah.
So it's not really effective as a fundraising tool. Sort of like those challenge coins.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
And
those things are amazing.
I see the iron on patch. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
but the challenge coin, like I'm making no money on that at all.
Hmm.
It's I think I'm actually losing a little bit by selling those on the campaign. But I kind of wanted one for myself too, so I'm willing to eat it just a little bit.
Yeah, see, that's the problem too with a lot of people doing brand new Kickstarters that you don't want to do it where like you're breaking even or that you're spending more money than making money because in the
Mm-hmm.
end we want our comic to get out there because we have a story and we want to tell that story, but in the end we're doing this hoping that we can do this full time. At least some people
Right.
who aren't able to do art full time because they have to do a 9 to 5
Yeah.
job at like a, whatever retail or fast food, whatever people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So most
Well,
definitely.
it costs thousands of dollars to make a comic book. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
just like before you even go to the printer, you've usually already spent a couple $1,000s. So yeah, if you can't at least cover your cost, then you know you can't do it just for the joy of it,
Mhm.
and spend $2,000 every time you make a comic book.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But that's the good thing now is that there's so many like companies out there like Comics Wellspring and other things that are making it more affordable.
Hmm.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's up, Fog? My co-host there, he wasn't able to make it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, most definitely. I'm really drawn to the colors and just the story overall, I just like a old school, like y- typical, hot female going to kick some ass.
Yeah. I mean,
Because yeah,
that is pretty much exactly what we're going for, and this is
yeah.
in spite of its like serious themes and undertones, it's
Mhm.
it is a comedy, comedy action romp at heart.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And even though it's a comedy action sci-fi, you what's great is that you have like the scary moments like with the dinosaurs getting ready to attack her.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's ways to like as a creator, no matter what type of genre you're drawing or writing, you want to be able to have the person want to turn the next page to see what happens.
Yeah,
Because if you start losing interest with them in the beginning, then they're just going to put it down.
yeah, and this first issue is very rapid fire. There's an awful lot of stuff,
Hmm.
that happens from, like there's the launch, and then there's a space battle, and then the crash landing, then the encounter with the dinosaurs. There's sentient fungi in the water, and yeah, it's just one thing after the next in this first issue. So I think yeah, if there's anything wrong with this book, I don't think it's going to be boredom.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's one of those things that I like the last guest that I had on the show and other people. Like, I don't know if you came across it now, like a lot since it's so easy to do stuff digitally.
Mhm.
People are putting like QR codes in the comic. So it's like you're at a certain scene and you see like a radio playing, and then the person scans that QR code in the comic, and then it brings you to a song. So that way, that YouTube song, now you're picturing that song that's playing on the
Oh,
YouTube
yeah,
on
yeah,
your YouTube, and it goes more with the scene, and it's like almost like picturing it in a movie sense. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
It's kind of
really
fun.
great to see how people are like in like being more creative for the younger people that really never grew up with comics. And a lot of people are like, oh, comics is a dying media, people would rather just go see the movie instead of read a
Uh,
comic. But
yeah, it doesn't feel that way. That doesn't
yeah,
feel
is
true.
yeah, exactly.
I
I
think it
mean,
in
you
some
don't
ways,
have
I think it's bigger now than it was in the 90s.
oh
Just
yeah,
because the major publishers aren't breaking the dough anymore like they used to, doesn't
oh
mean
yeah,
the industry's dead.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I always go back to like the old school movies that you would have, like the Batman movie with Michael Keaton, Jack
Hmm.
Nicholson. Every time when those movies came out, or any other movie, you'll have it's called not a comic book, but it was called the novelization.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they still do those anymore. But I just remember as a kid having the novelization of the Batman. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then you grow up, it's like, oh yeah, sometimes these novelizations aren't that good.
yeah, yeah. At some point, you come to realize that the comic book companies, the big three in particular, a lot of the stuff that turned into great ideas happened because the people that were in the trenches working on them made them great. But
Yeah.
at the top of the chain, these were just cash grabs.
Oh yeah, most
You
definitely.
know,
I mean, that's the thing with a lot of the cartoons in the 80s, like He-Man and stuff like that. Those toy companies just made the cartoon show to sell toys. So yeah,
right? And
but
I got no beef with He-Man or Transformers toys. Those were
oh
some of my
yeah,
favorites growing up.
right, right.
But
I definitely had some I had some He-Man, some I mostly Ghostbusters because I love
oh
Ghostbusters,
yeah,
but
mhm.
yeah, just even Thundercats, all that old school stuff. But
Thundercats,
yeah,
Silverhawks, yeah, you bet.
oh yeah, oh man. But yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about your comic? Because now we're going to be going to the half an hour mark. So, we're going to be switching from the comic. And just for the audience to really get to know you by asking, like, questions about sci fi, questions about horror. So, because it's always great for the audience to really know the creator outside of the comic. Because,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
fun.
let's get into it.
All right. So, when you started doing this, it's like, okay, I love sci-fi and I want to do sci-fi, or is this just like a typical, oh, I just feel like I want to write this? Like, did you grow up watching sci-fi and horror as a kid? And did you like really grow near to those type of like genres?
Uh, you know, I spent a lot of time as a kid watching Star Trek, and
Yeah, same here.
yeah, there's just like there were so many nerdy fandoms that were just like near and dear to me as a child, and
Hmm.
it's not I'm not just determined to be like just a sci-fi comic artist because there's lots of other genres that I really love and enjoy too. But
Yeah.
it was this was one that I was like I'm going to do this sci-fi for sure.
Hmm. For sure. Uh, What about horror? Are you big on horror? Do you ever feel like you're? I don't know if you've done a horror comic, but do you feel like you want to in the near future?
I have. I'm actually like I'm kind of cooking one up with my wife right now. We have a revenge horror comic idea that we're trying to. I'm trying to lure her into my comic nerddom, by making her a part of it.
Well, if you guys do it, let me know, and I'll get you on the show to
Yeah,
promote it.
absolutely.
And when it comes to like sci-fi movies or horror movies, what would be your favorite sci-fi? And you could say you could have it separately from horror, but like what's your favorite sci-fi and horror movie?
I would have a really hard time like nailing down my
Hmm.
favorite sci-fi movie because I mean I really like the harder science fiction, things like the Europa Report.
Yeah.
But I also, I mean, I really love movies like Pacific Rim, where it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like a manga, in live action. It's like it's great fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sucks that we didn't know you before because what was it? I think it was this year. Maybe Jason can help me. That we had a 2-year anniversary, and we had like different horror artists on, and we talked about I think almost 2 hours about John Carpenter's The Thing, just
Oh
because
yeah,
that's like true sci-fi horror right there. And yeah,
Mhm.
just it's always great to getting to stuff because it's like with horror movies that take part in the sci-fi genre. Like you have the sure Aliens 2 that was more of like action packed, but the first Aliens,
Yeah, yeah,
that was like definitely horror there, where you had jump scares with the alien and stuff like that. And you know,
yeah.
as I
I
always
love both of
say,
those movies. I
oh
love them
yeah,
both.
is there like I think I asked what was your favorite horror movie, or do you have one?
My favorite horror movie is, I think it's probably Freddy versus Jason, actually,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and the reason why is that there's a lot of horror movies, especially recently, like the horror movies that start with the word "the," and
yeah. Hmm.
they're not very good. They're just full of kind of cheap scares. And but Freddy versus Jason, I love it so much because it knows exactly what kind of movie it is.
Oh
It
yeah.
doesn't pretend to be anything else.
Even though people like me and you who probably seen Freddy's hand come out of the ground to grab Jason's mask
Oh
at
yeah,
the end of Jason Goes to Hell, we waited so long to get that movie. We finally
hmm
got it.
yeah, and it's pretty much exactly what we thought we were going to get too.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, most definitely. You know, and yeah, I definitely like that movie. I just the key points with like Freddy doing the whole like pinball with Jason and then tilt, and it's like, why won't you die?
why would you die?
Yeah. But of
Uh,
course it had its
oh,
it had its bad moments. It's like why would Jason be afraid of water if he's always like if there's been scenes in the other Friday movies where he's killed people while hiding in the water. But
mhm.
sometimes it depends on like the person that's writing it. Not everybody's going to seen every single Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah. I do take that back though. I just remembered that there is a horror movie that I like better than that one, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a really cheesy one. It's called Dead Alive. It's an old '80s horror movie.
Yeah. I
And,
you said Dead Alive? Oh,
uh,
is this the one I'm thinking of? Stand back, child. I kick ass for the Lord.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This calls for divine intervention. Yeah,
Right? Right.
that's the
Hey,
one.
hey, it's all right. One of my favorite horror movies, besides, well, I have different genres, but besides John Carpenter's The Thing, I always tell people one of my favorite horror comedies of all time is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I
Oh
have the
yeah,
blanket, I
that's.
have the t-shirt, I have the mug. When the video game comes out, I'm gonna play that.
I know that was this kind of like farcical comedy movie, but it
Mhm.
still terrified me as a child.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But but that's a great thing about horror and sci-fi is that you can have cheesy designs like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but still find a way to have it horrifying, you
Hmm
know. And
Well, yeah, it's clowns. They're
yeah.
terrifying anyway.
Mhm. Yeah. And you said you're gonna do horror, and I always tell people next I'll ask what your favorite horror genre is, because the beautiful thing about horror is that you could have a sci-fi horror, you could have a fantasy, dark fantasy horror, you could have a slasher horror, you have so many subgenres of one genre. So whatever you want to write, you can, And do you feel that sci-fi is your favorite like horror genre to go to, or is there like, okay, this is the type of horror that I love outside of like someone slicing someone up as a
Yeah,
slasher? Like people like nowadays people are big into like horror that has to do with like ghosts and stuff like that, like The Conjuring. Like a lot
mhm.
of people are into that now.
Yeah. I'm not crazy about that stuff. I didn't really like the paranormal movies at
Hmm.
all, but yeah, like the revenge horror movies. Like I do like those where like the girl that was bullied in high school comes back from the dead and kills the mean girls or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like that kind of stuff. I think it's great fun.
Yeah,
And
or especially with me, sure they were cheesy a lot, but I always loved the creature features.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
Pumpkinhead.
oh yeah, Pumpkinhead is a great design.
Mhm.
Like, I hate now that you see what the monster looks like in the beginning. Have it where, like, even look at Jaws. You didn't see Jaws until later into the movie. Like,
Right.
if you're gonna have a horror creature, don't show what they completely look like in the very beginning.
It's just the other day. My wife and I sat down and we watched Van Helsing. A really terrible movie with Kate Beckinsale and Hugh Jackman in it.
Mhm.
But the opening sequence of that, where they did like the all black and white and kind of almost like Hitchcock style filming,
Yes,
and
yes.
you didn't really see Frankenstein, you just saw the shadows being, from
Mhm.
the lightning on the walls,
Yeah,
and I love stuff like that.
yeah. Mhm. Most definitely.
And you
But
don't really need to see the monster, you just get that, you get all the atmosphere and that gnawing fear of the unknown kind of preys on you while you watch it because you don't get to
yeah,
see it.
I mean, people say, I mean, they say less is more for a reason.
Hmm.
But that's why a lot of people are like not into like the whole torture porn horror movies nowadays, and I understand that, you know. But yeah, with like creature features like critters,
Hmm.
love critters, and
Yeah,
then you had Full Moon with Puppet Master and all those movies. Yeah.
yeah. Critters and Tremors were favorites of mine too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most definitely. When it uh so when it comes to like your most memorable scene from a horror movie, either because it terrified you or you were just amazed on how they were able to accomplish that, what movie and what scene was that in? I mean, what scene was that in what movie?
There's so many, but it's like since we just mentioned it, I think it was in Critters 2 when there's the giant ball of critters,
Yeah,
and
I
it's like
actually watched
the
a
Indiana
documentary of how they
Jones,
did that.
and they roll over a guy, and then he's like skeletonized when they
Yeah.
roll over him.
Mhm.
And I was amazed by that scene when I first saw it.
Oh yeah. And like you were saying, Indiana Jones,
Hmm.
but like I remember the first Hellraiser movie on how the guy was like a skeleton and then all of his like muscle skin was growing back. It was
Oh,
like
right, yeah.
it was like watching Indiana Jones but on steroids,
Hmm. Yeah, the
because
Temple of Doom,
yeah.
or Raiders. It's from Raiders, right?
The first no, the it was the first one where they had the Art of the Covenant where the faces were melting.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right at the end.
Hmm. Hmm. So yeah. And now when it comes to like 80s slashers, or it doesn't even have to be 80s slashers. Like a lot of people are big on ghost space now, but like out of all the like horror movie slashers, who is your favorite and why?
Uh, I think like Jason was the guy that I kind of met first, right? So
Hmm.
you almost have like kind of a weird brand loyalty to the one you saw first.
Oh yeah.
But you
I
know,
the first horror movie I seen was Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors. So Freddy is big on me just because the creativity that he could do.
yeah, I think I was big on Jason too because it's
Hmm.
like he doesn't talk, he doesn't talk smack, or he just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps
Oh
coming.
yeah.
He's like a nightmare, you know. And Freddy Krueger, he always had something, you know, some kind of witty repartee to share.
Oh yeah. He was like the uncle trying to make something funny. But
Right.
I think what drew me more to Freddy is the creativity is like, with Dream Master, he literally turned a girl into a cockroach and killed her that way.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just the creativity. But definitely I could see Jason because Jason had a lot like Michael Myers, yes, he did. But when you watch a lot of the Friday the 13th movies, a lot of kills that Jason did were very creative and very different.
Hmm.
Instead of, oh, just use this knife to stab someone. No,
Yeah.
he found
Oh
different
no.
ways to kill
Yeah.
people.
Just pick him up in the sleeping bag and smack him against a tree a few times, you know.
Right, right, exactly.
And Jason in space too. It was like all kinds of fun stuff in there.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a ride,
The the
and
guy in
what's
the
funny,
frozen hydrogen or the liquid hydrogen or
mhm,
nitrogen, whatever
yeah,
it was, I about died watching that.
yeah, and it was during that time period. It's like, who's gonna go into space now? You had Jason, you had
Mhm.
Hellraiser, you had the Leprechaun. Everyone was going to space,
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
right? Now, when it comes to horror movies, or even now you're going to be writing you're going to try to write a horror comic, do you feel that you're just not willing to go too far at a certain point because people have their limits? Some people are like, oh yeah, I'm all into like making it as gory as possible, or making, with me, I always mention it, I'm not a fan of like the movies Human Centipede, because if you're not really getting a scare factor out of me and just getting a disgust fast factor, then I'm not going to be really drawn to that horror movie, because
Yeah.
it's mostly just going to make me sick to my stomach than make me like scared and on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. That's. I mean, like that's just it. It's it's just like it's just there for shock
Yeah.
and to be gross and and that's not really scary. It's just
Mhm.
nasty.
Yeah, you
So.
need suspense.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you could write an amazing horror story where you like never even actually saw a victim. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely and that goes into the next question, because back then they really didn't show that. But out of Dracula, Frankenstein, all the Universal monsters, who's your favorite?
Frankenstein for sure.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
And
yeah,
why
by
is that?
Frankenstein, I mean the scientist, not the monster, because
Yeah,
like wow, what are you doing, guy?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. Like
yeah,
me and my co-host, Fogbreaker Studios, we reviewed Frankenstein Alive Alive by Bernie Wrightson, amazing artist, you
yeah,
know,
Bernie's incredible.
and I always say that why I like Frankenstein movie more, because it's the human who's the monster, while the creation is just innocent. And the
Right.
book is more of like not a horror movie; it's more of a like a tragedy. You know, where this person, like I always say it, it's like if he was playing a piano, does he know how to play a piano, or is it the hands that are sewn to him that know how to play, because he's made up of different body parts of different
Yeah,
people?
yeah, and I mean like this like the real horror of that would be this monster with the human brain trying to find some sort of identity for itself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like am I even one person if I'm made out of 10 different people? And,
Yeah. So
I
it's
think a lot of
trying
those
to find
things.
out who you really are.
Yeah, just make the things for just the like Final Destination kind of movies. Like they're funny. I'll give it that.
Oh
I
yeah,
laugh watching those,
yeah.
but they're not exactly what I would call like well thought out, well written stories.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And now we have the Fast and the Furious movies that do that. No.
I I watched the first one. I don't think I've seen one since.
Yeah. But most definitely, I mean, there's different parts of like horror or sci-fi. They're like they just go out and like make all the movies about that. Like we were saying, the Paranormal Activity. For the longest time, there was every single horror movie that came out had to have that type of feel to it.
Mhm.
but it just wasn't catching to me like how the first Blair Witch movie was, because that seemed more real than the first Paranormal. I don't know. That was just me.
Yeah, I think the Blair Witch was. Yeah, I think that was like a novel and like kind
Mhm.
of a new idea and something we hadn't seen a whole lot of before.
Yeah,
But there was just kind of a rash of shaky camera movies that happened after that that I was not blown away with.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and the Blair Witch may have been like the most amazing marketing campaign I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. That
That's what I remember from that movie was the marketing campaign. Everybody was talking about it in the
Oh
way that
yeah, just like with the
you
first
know.
Texas Chainsaw. Like people thought that, that family was real and it was based off of a true family.
Mhm.
It's just that's the great thing. If you could get people to believe a lie from a horror movie, then
Yeah.
that you're gonna make some money off of those tickets. So yeah. So when it comes to, I don't like I've seen that you did some 3D and stuff like that.
Uh huh.
Is like I don't know if you're like most if you focus on just the comics, but did you ever play like any video games growing up as
Oh
a
sure.
kid
Yeah.
that were like very horror theme that you really loved? Because me, I was a fan of Clock Tower.
Yeah. I don't think I ever played Clock Tower.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. Like horror themed games like Dead Space.
Oh yeah, Dead
We played
Space. Yeah.
we played Dead Space, the one that was on the Wii. And I played
Hmm.
the first one too, but I can't remember the name of it. What was the name of Dead Space on the Wii, Connor? Do you remember?
Dead Space on the Wii. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I know what game you're talking about. The arcade style.
I take a second to ask my stepson. But yeah, we don't know the name of it, but it was on the Wii. And the thing that really got me the most about that was that like you get infected at the end of the game,
Oh yeah.
and you're outside fighting like the big boss monster, and you
Hmm.
wind up it's like kind of shooting like these stakes at you, and you wind up getting staked to the spacecraft, and you're stuck out there. And it took me a while to figure out that the only way to get out of that is to cut off your own arm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Gotcha.
and
It's
it was like, wow, what a neat thing to have in a game.
Extraction.
Extraction is the name of that.
Oh, okay. I haven't played that, but I've seen people play that. But yeah, definitely now with video games, there's just so many horror games coming out nowadays. I mean, the big one that people talk about is Phasmophobia with like, you know,
Hmm.
trying to detect ghosts with like different like, things that they would use on a ghost hunt. So yeah, most
Yeah,
it's definitely fun to see how, horror like
yeah,
is becoming a normalized thing, because I always say that growing up as a kid, you would have people like, "Oh no, Superman could beat the crap out of Batman or this person," and then when we became older, we're like, "Oh, Jason could definitely beat the crap out of Michael," or
hmm
you know, we always fought who could be better, and sadly, we've only seen like Jason versus Freddy, and I wish they would have more.
yeah. It should have like a celebrity death match,
Exactly, like
sudden
why
death tournament.
Yeah, like why not have Chucky versus the Puppet Master? Dolls versus Dolls. They did of course, it was part of the same franchise, but I love that. What was it? Puppet Master versus Demonic Dolls. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. So that I watched that Megan movie recently,
Oh yeah. How did you
and
like that?
I was really surprised. I thought that it was going to be the dumbest thing ever,
Yeah.
and it was. I had my expectations were so low. I think that it couldn't help but exceed them.
Hmm.
But I was really surprised how good of a movie that was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way because they were just turned off about the remake with Chucky.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be another Chucky movie.
Yeah. But then I'm glad that the TV show came out because the sci-fi, I think it's on Sci-Fi. Yeah, the Chucky TV show on Sci-Fi. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll watch this. But each season has gotten better just because you could do so much, and just love seeing more of like Charlie's Ray's like backstory that we never
Mhm.
really got a chance to see with the movies.
Yeah, That's something I really enjoy about like about like the Disney Plus series too. You get like so much more depth out of those than you can get out of just 1 2 hour movie.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so I could
back,
totally see why that would work
yeah.
for Chucky.
Yeah, and like, me and you, like, we probably are around the same age, or you're maybe a little bit older. I don't know. But growing up in the 80s and 90s, most of the time, you look forward more to the movies than TV shows. And now it's the opposite. People want to be on
Yeah.
TV shows because that's where, you know, not more the money, but more the creativity is going.
Well, I think back then our TV shows were kind of dictated by network executives, and
Yeah.
everything was very safe. And The Simpsons was about the
Mhm.
most risque thing you could watch on TV.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's just like, sure, Netflix, for a while they weren't doing great, but Netflix, when they came out with like Stranger Things, that was like a whole new ball field right there
Oh
with
yeah,
creativity.
yeah, I'm a big fan of that show.
Oh yeah, same here. Like, kids fighting monsters. I was a
Mhm.
big fan, and I still love Monster Squad. Wolfman has
Oh
nards.
yeah, that's right. Kick him in the nards.
Yeah, Wolfman has nards. So yeah, it's just great to see, like, again, more and more people drawn to sci-fi and horror, because for a while, especially when it came to the 80s and a lot of the, like, going
Mhm.
into the 90s and 2000s, they just steered more away from that stuff and focused more
Yeah,
on
well,
action.
I
Like,
think sci-fi was kind of treated as like kids' fare for a long time.
yeah, yeah. Like when Armageddon came out, everybody
Mhm.
had to make a movie about some way about how the earth was going to be destroyed, either by a
Yeah,
meteor or some other way,
right.
you know.
Yeah, and yeah, those things haven't stopped. Like 2012 came out shortly after.
Yeah. hmm But with horror, like, we've had a actress on the show who's been in some horror movies, and we've had female actresses. And what I just loved about the horror genre, unlike like during the 80s, every action hero was mostly a male. But then in horror, like with Alien, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, the final girl was the one who finally actually killed the monster, killed the bad guy.
Yeah.
So they were really the ones to show, like, hey, we're not sexist here. We want the women to just be as bad and strong as the guys too,
Hmm.
instead of being like the damsel in distress.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's the female heroine thing. I think it's actually gotten a little bit pervasive. It's like I think we've gone a little too far with it.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
you could if you go through like if you scroll through the Kickstarter comics, not to like derail the horror movie conversation, but
hmm
like they're like almost every single one is female lead.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that, but then you have like some comics that it's like I could definitely see why they have it. Like one, like I really enjoyed Witchblade as a kid,
Hmm.
and I was happy the TV show came out. But yeah, I could definitely see how, people want to just jump on. I mean, and it's not towards anybody out there, but sometimes people just want to jump on the bandwagon and make a comic on something that they know is going to sell, instead
Yeah,
of
true.
like pouring their heart and soul into it. It's like, oh, guess what? Everybody's big on Saw or Paranormal Activity or Annabelle. So let me just try to make a piece of artwork or write a comic on that, because I know people are going to do it. Just like people who make t-shirts for a living, they'll try to make money off a catchphrase that's really popular at the moment.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you got to eat. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to eat, but sometimes it's good to just be creative instead of just jumping on the bandwagon at the same
Mhm.
time.
It's very true.
So you know we're almost at the hour. We're at almost 55 minutes. You want to
Oh,
talk
okay.
about anything else with horror, or
Sure. Yeah, like while we were talking about video games, something that kind of dawned on me. Yeah, like I recently watched, my younger brother play a few minutes of the Resident Evil VR game,
Yeah.
and it occurred to me like why isn't like horror like movies and games like bigger in VR? And
Well, that's the thing with Phasmophobia that I like so much, that it's coming out to other consoles, but with VR, it's like, you are using a like the little detect like EMT meter, I think that's what it is, to find out where the ghost is at. Because
Yeah.
if it starts spiking, it's like, okay, there's a high energy signal here, or you have to turn on the light to do this. So definitely VR is really big into like the whole horror thing.
Yeah, it seems like such a
Because
natural fit. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
for you can just like even a Five Nights at Freddy's game seems like it would be amazing.
I played Five Nights at Freddy on VR. It was definitely a lot more like scarier than playing it on like just with a mouse and keyboard, just
Yeah.
because that's all you see and hear. Like, I don't know if you ever played it, but Alien Isolation,
Hmm.
I played that in
Yeah.
VR. Totally different experience in VR
Really.
than playing it on a console.
Huh. Oh
So
gosh.
so definitely I like where horror's going, because growing up, you didn't have a lot of horror games either. I mean, if you did,
No, no.
they weren't as popular as they are now.
Although that first Resident Evil came out, that was kind of a game changer when it came
Oh
out.
yeah, most definitely.
I mean, the tank movement and all. But,
Hmm. Yeah. But so I guess we'll end it here. But if you, as I say to anyone, if you have another book to promote, like that horror comic that you want to get your wife on board, or even
uh,
if you want to like, hey, I have some free time, want to come on your show and just chit chat, because when we're not doing interviews, once in a while we just like to do a random topic. Like we did a topic, nothing on werewolves, and we did a topic on vampires. So yeah, we
yeah,
sometimes we just shoot the breeze about like different horror movies or different like horror stuff. So
I
you're
think
more than welcome to do that.
like you really want to get my writer Dean Page on here because
Yeah.
he's his book that he's writing, which he's going to launch it like soon after Natalia ends. The Return of Big Sunrise is actually it's about a bounty hunter who's got a werewolf curse on it.
Oh yeah, I definitely yeah, send him my way. I definitely want that on, because I want
Yeah,
to hear about that.
he's a great guest too. He's a great
Yeah.
talker. So
Yeah,
I
because
think you guys
I don't know
really
if
get along well.
I don't know if you knew, but like Del Toro, how he made the Wolfman movie. Did you
Uh huh.
find out what they were planning to do with the second one, if it was successful?
No, I don't know.
You know how at the end the detective got scratched? He was planning to make a movie where that detective was going to use his werewolf powers to track down and kill Jack the Ripper.
Oh yeah, that would
Yeah.
have been great.
So that would have been interesting to see, because I'm like, okay, that would have been an interesting take.
Yeah, I
But
think if people
yeah,
knew that, they would clamor for that movie. I think.
yeah, yeah. But again, thank you for coming on.
Mhm.
Hope your Kickstarter does well. And anybody who's watching now live or watching afterwards, show some love, even if you can't buy a physical book, because everything's expensive. At least buy a digital copy from him. Show the support, because everyone on here, we're comic creators and we're comic lovers too. And it's just great to support each other in this big growing community, because as I feel, the indie comics are starting to outshine than the big three, the big boys. And it really shows. So you all have a good night, and I'll see y'all next week.
All right, thanks for having me.